Are Jews really under some sort of threat, some global threat, or is this the fanciful ideas of, you know, extreme people not being aware of the facts? Well, I want to show you a couple of clips of video that will set the stage for the discussion. And the first piece occurred a couple of years ago, and the videographer was myself, standing in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, with about 300 Hamas Hezbollah demonstrators. And just take a look at this short piece, and it'll set the tone for the way some people view Israel and Jewish people.
You loser! Loser! Your mother's whore! Your mother's whore! You loser! Yeah, fuck yourself! Nuke Israel! Nuke Israel! Nuke Israel! There is no Israel! There is no Israel!
Go to hell! Go to hell! Go to hell! Israel, go to hell! 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 Coward!
Steal! Go steal other land! Go! Go back to the oven! You need a big oven! That's what you need!
That little piece of video, actually it was about a 10-minute piece that we sent out on December 31st, 2008, and it was shot on December 30th. It literally went all over the world and was played on news stations all over the world. And it uncovered the Arab street in Tony, Fort Lauderdale. That was about 3.5 years ago. Maybe, just maybe, things have gotten a little more pleasant, and the religion of peace has permeated South Florida a bit more. But let's take a look at June 18th of last year, 2011, where a couple of folks got together on a corner and wanted to talk about the Intifada. Look at this.
Long live the Intifada!
Long live the Intifada!
Intifada! Intifada!
Intifada! Intifada!
From the river to the sea,
From the river to the sea,
Palestine will be free.
Palestine will be free.
That was in front of the Israeli consulate on 3rd and Biscayne Boulevard in downtown Miami. So we can go on and on and on, demonstrate empirically with investigative video, with eyewitness testimony, that the level of anti-Semitism, of Jew hatred, and of Christian hatred has increased in many individuals in the Islamic world in South Florida and throughout the United States and throughout the world. But the focal point for today is going to be looking at the consolidated effort of many countries, 20, 25 countries, and individuals from those countries and many from other countries in this effort to put 1 million people on the borders of Israel, essentially surrounding Israel, and then from the Gaza Strip and from the West Bank, Judea, Samaria, march into, that sounds crazy, but their desire is to march into Jerusalem and to liberate Jerusalem from the Zionist occupiers. That's what the purpose of the Global March on Jerusalem is, and it's set for 2 days from today, the 30th of March, 2012. And in the studio to help walk us through the material, we have a couple of experts right here. To my right, your left, is Joe Sabag, the head of ZOA, Zionist Organization of America. Joe, you're the head of a Zionist organization. Are you a Zionist by any chance?
I am very proudly a Zionist.
Why don't you say hello for a second and introduce yourself?
Everybody, good afternoon. I'm Joseph Sabag. I'm the Florida Director for ZOA, the Zionist Organization of America. We have a lot of operations here in Florida. We do our best to support the relationship between the United States and Israel. Many of the unfortunate things that you just saw in the video obviously are the types of activities and messages that we become a target of. So we're paying very close attention to what's happening right now. We view this as a crucial time for Americans to stand up. We believe that support for Israel is an important expression of Americanism. And so on that basis, we're proud to be here today with our friends Tom Trento and the United West, trying to help others understand exactly what's coming. We feel it's urgent for people to realize that this could be a potential catastrophe coming up on the horizon. We don't want it to be unforeseen. We want people to be prepared to respond if necessary. So with that in mind, we're very pleased to help educate the public this afternoon.
Excellent. And on my left, to your right, is Matt Weisbaum. And Matt is an individual who brings a unique element to the show today. He lives in the United States, but he has lived and continues to own property in Israel. So Matt, and he's with the Clarion Fund and Jerusalem Online. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell the folks a little bit about what you do.
I'm originally an American, and I spent the last 10 years living in Jerusalem. 6 years in the Old City, which until 1967 was off limits to Jews when it was under the control of the Jordanians. And then the last...
Wait. Prior 1967, Jerusalem was off limit to Jews?
Not all of Jerusalem. The Old City, the holiest places to the Jewish community and many holy places to the Christians, it was a divided city. The Jordanians did not allow Jewish visitation to our holy city. You
could not go into the Old City. Jewish people couldn't go into the Old City.
That's
okay,
right.
We want to talk about that, but go ahead. I may interrupt you. That's sort of...
I'm used to it.
Okay. You're probably married.
So I spent the last 4 years living in Jerusalem in a different neighborhood, and my house actually is bisected by the 1949 armistice lines, aka the Green Line. And now I work with an organization called JerusalemOnlineU.com, and we educate individuals, Jews and non-Jews alike, across the world through innovative films about issues related to Judaism, and particularly the state of Israel.
Okay, here's what I'd like everybody to do, because we have a good hour and a half where we're going to go through a tremendous amount of information. We have two experts coming up in a couple of minutes, Beth Galinsky and Lori Lowenthal Marcus, and I'll formally introduce them. They're going to help establish the foundation as to what this global march on Jerusalem is all about. But right now, call up your friends, email, text your friends, tell them to watch the show. It's live, we're live streaming it. We have a good system here, but it's kind of guerrilla television. So you may experience a few glitches here or there. If you do, don't worry about it. We're going to be relaxed, but we're going to hit the material head on. Mark, are we ready for the next video?
Yes.
All right, I want you to take a look at this. This is a short piece, couple of minutes, produced by the Global March on Jerusalem people, telling why they need to liberate Zion, to liberate Jerusalem from the Jews. Take a look at this.
Jerusalem is not a settlement. It's our capital. It's our capital.
And I know that when I visit AIPAC, I'm among friends, good friends. Friends who share my strong commitment to make sure that the bond between the United States and Israel is unbreakable today, unbreakable tomorrow, unbreakable forever. Jerusalem will remain the capital of Israel, and it must remain undivided.
Okay, that's a little overview from the perspective of the Arab world. This is essentially an Arab movement, Arab Islamic movement, as to why they need to liberate Jerusalem. Well, we're going to ask that question of our next two guests, two women warriors of biblical proportion, if you ask me. I've worked with both of these ladies many times on various projects, including the Ground Zero Mosque, and they have tremendous expertise and run a couple of different organizations. First, I want to bring in Beth Galinsky, the National Conference. She's the Executive Director of the National Conference on Jewish Affairs. Beth, are you with us? Hello? You there, Beth?
I'm with you.
Okay, you got to speak up. And you're not one not to speak up, I know that. Now let's get, I think we're going to be able, are we, Mark, to Skype in Lori? Let's try that. Now we're really getting pretty slick here with our limited budget equipment. For those of you out there who write big checks, if you want to see shows like this, you could help us with writing a big check for high-tech equipment.
Is it?
She's on? Okay. Lori, you are on screen, and we can hear you, and Beth, we can hear you. Let me ask you first, Beth, what the heck is going on? From your perspective, what is this Global March on Jerusalem all about?
The Global March on Jerusalem, which is taking place this Friday, I will give you my interpretation in a minute of what I really think it is. But what they say it is a march into Jerusalem, a march on Israel's borders, a march of people from around the world at the missions and consulates and embassies of Israel. And they say it's going to be a peaceful march. Now, if anyone believes that, I've got a bridge up here in New York I'd like to sell them. Because the people involved tell us that there's going to be nothing peaceful about it. First of all, Iran is involved. This was announced in Tehran by the Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran before a crowd of 30,000 cheering Iranians. We know for sure that Iran and Ahmadinejad are key players in this. We know that Fatah is involved, Hamas. We know that Hezbollah is involved. We know that a lot of the organizations in the territories are involved. And we know that they're getting support from the biggest list of leftist, Islamist, Israel haters, anti-Semites from across the globe, including Desmond Tutu and including people like the Reverend Jeremiah Wright of Goddamn America fame, who also published Hamas writings in his church pamphlets and also writings by Louis Farrakhan. He's a hater of America, a hater of Israel, and we know what he's all about. Desmond Tutu, there's a character out of India named Swami Agnavish, who is another charlatan who's standing with these guys. For them to claim that this is going to be a peaceful march, well, yes, what they're probably going to do is go to the borders and with willing media at their side, Al Jazeera and leftist American media and leftist European media, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some kind of incident provoked by these so-called peaceful marchers that will certainly make it to the media and into our internet, so that we'll all get to see the so-called brutality of the Israeli soldiers towards these peaceful marchers.
What should Jews, Christians, patriots, what should people do? I need a short answer for that, and I know you have a petition going on your website. Why don't you give us your website location and how folks can sign the petition?
Yes, go to NCJA for National Conference on Jewish Affairs, ncjausa.org. Again, ncjausa.org. Our statement is there, and what our statement is, and we're getting people, I mean, I haven't counted yet, but we have people coming on, I think, by the thousands at this point, signing on to this. calling on President Obama to stand with Israel, to come out and vigorously condemn this global march on Jerusalem meant to delegitimize the relationship between Jews and Jerusalem, the 3,000-year-old relationship between the Jewish people and our city. He should come out and state that he endorses a united, eternal Jerusalem under Jewish, Israeli sovereignty. He should come out and say these words. We haven't heard him definitively come out for Jerusalem. But he also should condemn this global march, which is full of jihadists who have other plans. I'm sure other guests are going to talk about it, but I just want to say that while we have this Friday, and I'll wrap up. While we have this Friday coming, I don't believe this is about this Friday. This is about much bigger things, I think, and plans that they're going to be launching in the future against Israel, in Europe, and possibly in the United States as well. So people better pay attention to this.
All right, thank you very much. While we're getting Lori, Beth, you're doing a tremendous job, everything you do, and we're with you 100%. And we're going to obviously keep our eyes on this gentleman. What do you think? While we're getting Lori set up, what do you think about President Obama? What do you think he should do regarding this this march? Joe.
Well, this is a challenge. One of the messages at the heart of what this global march is trying to put out there is, of course, that Jerusalem is being Judaized. The truth is that...
That's some word, Judaized.
Judaized.
Try to say that word, Judaized.
Well, it's ironic because actually the truth indicates quite the opposite. This is about trying to de-Judaize Jerusalem. Something interesting. My father is a member of a class of citizens who just had a case heard by the United States Supreme Court last November, and the ruling actually came down from the Supreme Court yesterday. He's an American citizen born in Jerusalem. His passport, his American passport, under country of birth does not say Israel. It just says Jerusalem. Now, this is a tremendous problem for a variety of reasons, one of which is that when he travels, of course, everybody thinks it's a fraudulent passport because it has a city listed instead of a country. My father has a right, of course. He's entitled to have Israel recognized as his country of birth under law passed in 2002 by the Congress. However, the executive branch, the president, has refused to recognize that. That's come through the State Department, of course, and it ended up in the Supreme Court. It was brought up under the political question doctrine for those who have an understanding of constitutional law. The Supreme Court yesterday just declared that it is a justiciable issue, that it's not subject to the political question doctrine. This has now been remanded to the lower courts. The point is, President Obama could be doing much more to reinforce the truth, to reinforce the fact that Jerusalem is a city that has always been Jewish, that it's had a continuous Jewish presence now for thousands of years. It's the eternal Jewish capital, a call that he once made while on the campaign trail in 2008, of course, at the AIPAC conference, was for Jerusalem to remain united. It was unfortunately a comment that was backtracked just 24 hours later in a statement. We believe that, of course, Jerusalem is a Jewish city, that it must remain Jewish, and that the president should be walking the walk in this instance and not simply talking the talk.
Okay, I think I mentioned everybody. Joe's an attorney, and our next guest, Lori, is also an attorney. Matt, I'm going to get to you in a minute, but Mark, are we good for people chatting on our site? Yeah, if you got questions or anything, send us some questions. We have our webmaster monitoring this. And if there's some folks out there that disagree with what's going on here, we're more than willing to let you call in, and we'll debate the issues right here. This is a free exchange of ideas. Let's go from one attorney to another attorney. Lori, if I'm not mistaken, you're a Harvard-educated attorney, aren't you?
I am, but given the conference that held at Harvard recently on the one state, I'm not always proud of that fact. But let me get right to what I'd like to talk about, if I can, which is, it isn't only about President Obama and members of Congress who have to stand up. It's all people who care about Israel. We have given up the battle on language, and this is really important. And this global march to Jerusalem is yet another effort to try and steal the true history and connection between the Jewish people and the land of Israel, and certainly with respect to Jerusalem. Now, it's being held on March 30th because that is Land Day, and I know you don't want a history lesson, but very briefly, Land Day happened March 30th in 1976. The Israelis had the temerity to try and take some land within Israel for Jewish towns. Now, this wasn't in any part of, the so-called disputed territories. This was within Israel proper. And it started a riot because the Arabs were furious that the Israeli government would take land for Jewish cities. And so there were riots and 6 Arabs were killed. And so, but it had nothing to do with Jerusalem in any event. So they're trying to tie the two together, to take hatred for Israel and invoke a sense that Jerusalem actually was something that was important to the Arab people. Not only wasn't Jerusalem important to the Arab people, but certainly the Arab Palestinians are not important to the Arab people either, other than as a political pawn. When the Arabs had control of what we now call liberated or Eastern Jerusalem, it was a cesspool, it was a sty, it was kept disgustingly and was not important at all. It was not until the Jewish people regained control over the area that is sacred to the Jewish people, the area that houses the Temple Mount, to which Jews pray 3 times a day, every day, for millennia. And so they're calling it land theft. I'm calling this identity theft. They are trying to take control over our history, and it's really important not only for President Obama and members of Congress to say no, but it's also important for everyone listening to this telecast and for all of us to say, no, I'm sorry, Jerusalem is a Jewish city. It is central to the Jewish people and the Christian people, and it has only recently become a political ploy for the Arab people.
All right, Matt, having lived there and listening to what Lori just said, what's your visceral response to the call for people to recognize the nature of the eternal city?
Well, the Arabic name for Jerusalem is Al-Quds, which means in Arabic, the holy. Now, why is it called the holy? It's called the holy, without again going into a dissertation on the history, it's called the holy because of the Jewish holy temple that stood in Jerusalem. Even the Arabic origins of Jerusalem and the Muslim ties to Jerusalem are based on Judaism's ties to Jerusalem. But let's be clear, this whole march is nothing more than a provocation. They are deliberately intending to inflict casualties upon themselves to elicit the humanitarian support and sympathies of the world, to try and portray Israel as the aggressors in this situation. It is absolutely deplorable in the fact that we're not seeing an outcry against what will inevitably be a loss of life when Israel legitimately defends its borders against infiltrators, against this loss of life by goodwill people, or presumably goodwill people of the world and governments of the world.
Yeah, we're going to get into that deplorable element in a second. But ladies, thank you very much, Beth and Lori. Today we're just kind of skimming over the surface. We thank you for taking the time and bringing your expertise. Depending on what happens on Friday, we may do a follow-up show and have you back for an extended analysis of what took place. So keep your eyes and ears open, and we will be in touch with you. Thank you. Goodbye to the ladies. Now, I believe we have Charles Jacobs. Is he ready to go? Charles Jacobs is another warrior. He's up in the Boston area, president of Americans for Peace and Tolerance. But Charles' claim to fame is that he and I were born in the same city in New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey. So my hat is off to anyone born in Newark, New Jersey. Is Charles ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
All right. How have you been, my friend?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Doing well. You have a unique element or angle to bring to the story. Not only are you fighting the jihad and standing up for Israel, but you've done a tremendous amount of work on in the Sudan on African slavery, on Islamic slavery. Can you share just a few thoughts on that and how all of this fits together for us?
Sure, sure. So the first thing that people have to understand is this war against Israel is really not about Palestinian nationalism. It's about the Islamic concept that there cannot be a non-Muslim state in the area. And in fact, when I was working with Sudan, I hope everybody understands that there's been a miracle. The country of South Sudan, which is black Christian, which defeated an attempt to destroy it, which was launched by the Islamic Republic of Sudan in the north, became the world's newest country. So you have a new country, South Sudan. Everybody should applaud that. And the reason they're a new country is because they split off from people who were enslaving them. So now you have Jeremiah Wright and certain black leaders like Louis Farrakhan hectoring the Jews and hating the Jews. And Jeremiah Wright has just endorsed this ridiculous, well, this dangerous march on Jerusalem. So he's got to know a couple of things. He's got to know a couple of things. That the Arab friends that he thinks he has have black slaves. So the black slaves that they have are both Christian in Sudan and Muslim in Darfur and in Mauritania. And it's outrageous that he would keep this news from the people that he thinks he's serving, that is, the black American population, which could do more than anything to free the slaves. In fact, in Sudan, the Black Caucus did a great job of supporting all of the abolitionist work there and forced American foreign policy to help free a lot of slaves. So Farrakhan and Jeremiah Wright are betraying their own black brothers and sisters by being against the Jews and for the Arab, Muslim enslavers of black people today. And people don't know that. And all the documentation, everything that you'd ever want to see, including videos of Farrakhan people denying that there's slavery in Sudan and being defeated in those debates by Africans themselves, can be found on www.abolish.org. And everybody ought to go learn that stuff. And whenever people like Jeremiah Wright are coming out against the Jewish state, they ought to take that and stick it to him, because he is the betrayer of his own people. That by linking with the Arab slave masters today, there's 30,000 slaves in Khartoum, in northern Sudan. The government of South Sudan just issued a demand, a plea to emancipate the slaves held by Arab Muslims in northern Sudan. Where is Jeremiah Wright on that? Go march on Khartoum. You there?
Yeah, go ahead, we hear you. Charles. Did we lose him? Is Claire ready?
Just a second.
All right, gentlemen, while they're doing the technical stuff, see, the way we work here at the United West Television, if our technical stuff gets a little glitchy, I got these guys right here. We can carry the show for the rest of the day, let me tell you. Jeremiah Wright and Desmond Tutu.
Yes.
Both of them are involved with this. What is that all about?
Well, what a shame. Desmond Tutu himself, unfortunately, speaks in particular by making use of the apartheid canard. He comes from South Africa, of course. He's a member of the clergy, and so he uses this great credibility to then point the finger at Israel and say, well, I know apartheid, of course, as a black South African, and let me tell you that Israel is an apartheid country. What a shame. What a shame. What an insult to everybody who actually suffered under apartheid. As Jewish people, we're never accepting of folks who try and make use of the Holocaust in inappropriate ways, trying to use it for political pettiness or some kind of gain. And rightfully so, many African Americans should be standing up and saying, no, this is unacceptable. The application of this canard to Israel is utterly false. It has absolutely no appropriate usage in this regard. And so when somebody like Desmond Tutu gets up and makes use of this apartheid language accusing Israel, he's actually cheapening a terrible tragedy.
Yeah, Matt, you know that our team, the United West, we take groups, not groups, we take our investigative folks onto campuses. And we go and we confront Israel Apartheid Week. We've done that many times. They put the wooden wall up and all of this stuff, and it's apartheid. And you know, I mean, it's a great term. You know, knucklehead 19-year-old who doesn't know what's going on gets caught up in all of this, and yeah, you know, free Palestine. Having lived there, well, first of all, let's define apartheid for a second, which is, I think, a critical element, because this global march, one of its foundational objections is the apartheid nature of Israel. What do you understand the apartheid to be, and how possibly can somebody apply that to Israel?
Well, apartheid is a technical term. It's a institutionalized political policy, and therefore I think that the lawyer in the room would probably be the most effective articulator of the actual definition of apartheid. So I'll defer to my colleague Joe.
Well, look, the bottom line is this: there are more than 1 million.
What's the definition for the audience? Somebody goes, apartheid, what does that mean? What's a simple definition for the audience?
Roughly put, it's a situation where you have two classes of citizens, one which enjoys a robust set of civil rights and another which does not enjoy those same rights and therefore finds itself oppressed under the foot of a smaller, in the case of South Africa, very slim majority that enjoys those robust set of rights while everybody else essentially suffers and has little.
All right, well, I hear the students on campuses and the pro-Palestinian people saying that's exactly the situation in Israel.
Right.
Is it?
Couldn't be further from the truth. In addition to having lived there, I was married there, and my wife had 2 children there. In our time in the hospital, we had Arab doctors, Arab nurses. The patients that would sit next to us in the hospital were Arabs, and they received the same level of care. We received great care from the Arab doctors who'd gone to medical school in Israel. In fact, I think the best articulation of how Israel is not an apartheid state was the fact that the former president of Israel was recently convicted of rape and sentenced to jail by an Arab judge. No black in South Africa ever dreamed of going to law school, let alone sitting as a judge in the judiciary. And yet in Israel, in the so-called apartheid state, you've got a minority member, an Arab, sitting in the judiciary sentencing a Jewish president to jail. Doesn't sound much like apartheid to me.
Yeah. Israel has more than 1 million Arab Israeli citizens who have complete voting rights. They have complete civil liberties. They have their own representation in the Israeli parliament. They have a member of the Israeli Supreme Court who is an Arab Israeli. So this idea somehow that the Arabs in Israel are second class of citizens, it's simply not true. They have the same equal protections that Israelis do. Now, they're applying this specifically to Arabs who find themselves living in parts of Judea and Samaria. These Arabs are refugees of 22 surrounding Arab countries that are all around Israel. These are not Israel citizens, although they live in areas that fall under Israel's sovereignty. You know, the political question of what is to happen with these folks, what is their future, that's a question that the Arab world itself continues to put off because they're using these folks as pawns. They're intentionally making use of these citizens, citizens of the Arab world. They're intentionally making use of these folks as pawns in order to foment further trouble against Israel.
It should be said that those individuals living in those areas have democratically elected their own Arab leadership. Yeah. They receive health care, they receive education. All of these things are autonomous underneath the rulership of the Palestinian Authority. They are not subject to Israeli rule except as it relates to Israeli security needs. But the daily life is under their own elected government.
That's a great point. I think that it was Palestinian negotiator Saeb Erekat who just 2 months ago recognized that less than 1% of the land in Judea and Samaria is has actually been developed by Israel in what they call the settlements, and that 99% of all Palestinians living in Judea and Samaria actually live under the autonomy of the Palestinian Authority. They're not under Israel's control, they're not Israeli citizens, and so it's unfair to suggest that somehow Israel is an apartheid state.
This is very, very important. For those of you just joining us, or those who are trying to sort some of this out, 2 days from today, today's the 28th of March, on the 30th, a day called Land Day, Palestinian Land Day, there's a proposed 1 million man-woman invasion into Israel. Supposedly millions. I think maybe 10 or 20,000, which is still going to be a mess. But they're saying 1 million people, there being the Arab side, are going to essentially surround Israel. Come in from Syria, from Lebanon, from Jordan, from Egypt, and then within this fifth column from Gaza, from Judea, Samaria. They're all going to go as far as they can toward the old city, the holy city, Jerusalem, and liberate it from the Zionists. That's the topic of the show today. The apartheid issue that we're discussing right now, that we see in the United West when we go on campuses, the wall, is one of the motivating factors why the Arab world feels they need to liberate Jerusalem. Because if you travel there, and our team was there just a few weeks ago, you will see a wall, a concrete wall, but really the wall is in very few areas. There's a fence that is protecting the Israelis from the terrorists who had free access for 10 years. And when we were there with our Jewish hosts, policemen, they were not allowed to go into the West Bank areas. They said, we can't go in there. First of all, we can't, the law doesn't let us go in. Number two, we would be killed if we went in there. I'm going, what are you talking about? And then there's checkpoints where the Palestinians are coming, going to work, all of that, and life goes on. But the people with bombs aren't let, the people with bombs are not let into Israel. What's so difficult about that? Man, this gets crazy, this stuff, but this is the world we're living in.
It's something.
Let me talk to our guys for a second. Where are we?
Claire's just about to come on now.
Claire is just about. You're gonna be privileged to have one of the experts on these issues in the United States, in the world, in many respects, who traveled with our United West team just a few weeks ago to Israel. We went there not as tourists. We went as guests of the government, as guests of Mr. Mark Kohlberg, who will be on our show later this evening. He's in Israel. And he took us behind the scenes to see the national security, counterterrorism procedures that have been put into place to protect the Israelis and the tourists and Americans and everyone else that wants to enjoy Israel from the terrorist, suicide, homicide, Hamas, bombers, killers. And that was our very unique tour. So we are ready for Claire. And Claire, if you could hear me, welcome to the United West show on the Global March on Jerusalem. Are you there?
Yes. Hi, Tom. I'm here.
Oh, good, good, good. And Claire's Skype. Is Claire? Do people see Claire? Sort of. No. No. Okay. We just hear your voice then, Claire. Why don't you take a minute, and I just led into the trip that you, myself, and a few of us were on recently. Just share your thoughts on that, particularly as Israel's an apartheid state and the security provisions we saw. And then I got a couple other questions for you.
Okay, sure. Well, the trip, as everybody has probably heard already, was an amazing look inside Israel from north to south, east to west. And it was a unique trip and a visit, I think, because our hosts were Mark Kohlberg and the Israeli National Police Force, which took us for a behind-the-scenes look at a lot of locations across Israel. In particular, places that had been subject to terrorist attacks by suicide bombers and others coming across from Palestinian Arab villages so close, so geographically close to Israel and its towns and cities, right next door to each other practically. So what we saw basically was a society in Israel, that's under attack. And this is part of what I would say in my broader comments, is that Israel has been under attack since the day it was born as the modern state of Israel in 1948, unceasingly attacked. The measures that Israel has taken, that the police showed us, were to defend the people of Israel against some of those attacks, in particular the suicide bombers, in particular the rifle sniper fire coming from buildings and apartments and even mosques in Arab villages nearby to Israeli towns. So we saw a lot of the measures put in place to defend against that.
All right. In light of this march, two questions. One, what do you think, from being behind the scenes on our trip, what do you think the Israelis are going to be doing in light of defensive measures, protective measures, to, you know, not to avoid any lethality, number one, and number two, who are the organizers behind this global march on Jerusalem?
Well, Tom, what I would say, number one, is that I think this march is in itself evidence of failure by the forces of jihad and Islam previously to destroy Israel. Excuse me. What has happened over the years since Israel was born as a modern state in 1948 are unceasing attacks. But one by one, the Islamic Arab enemies found that those attacks didn't work. The wars launched by Arab armies in the early years, in the War of Independence, in 1956, in 67, the war in 73, and on, did not destroy Israel, did not destroy its society and its cohesion as a Jewish state. Then they tried, obviously, global terror, strikes against Israelis and Jews everywhere on earth, including, of course, Israel, but other places too. The two intifadas, the one in 1987, the next one launched in September 2000, again, did not destroy the state of Israel, did not destroy the cohesive Jewish nature of the state of Israel. Then what did they do next? They tried the flotillas. There was one in 2010 which ended in bloodshed. That was with the Mavi Marmara, which accosted attacked the Israeli soldiers sent to divert that ship to Ashdod, where its humanitarian cargo could have been offloaded. The second flotilla was to have been launched last year, 2011, but due to legal issues, it was stopped. So that failed. Those flotillas failed. And then the next attempt was to achieve some sort of legitimacy for yet another Arab state to be created, but that was through the United Nations. That did not go anywhere. We saw that in the General Assembly and the Security Council of the United Nations last fall, last September 2011. That attempt failed. So what you're seeing is one after the other attempt to accost, to assault, to attack the state of Israel, and they all fail. So now they're up to this measure. They tried last year to send hordes of civilians and people on foot against the borders of Israel. That was repulsed and sent back. If they do it again this year, I'm sure that Israel will be ready on all of its borders, north and south, and to the east as well. This is a failed system that they are trying to attack the state of Israel with anything they can come up with. This is the last thing in their bag. They've got nothing else. And so I think what will happen is you'll have these civilians or whomever they get together can convince to go on this excursion coming up against the borders, but the Israelis will be ready with crowd control measures to ensure that the borders remain safe. And then your other question quickly was about who's behind it. Well, I think we have to think about Iran. Iran is behind it. Iran organized this together with Hamas. We saw that Ismail Haniyeh, the dictator in Gaza, traveled last December 2011. He went to Tehran and met with the leadership in Tehran. Also, just a little while ago, earlier this month in March, we had Musa Abu Marzouk, the Hamas leader, who used to be in Damascus, interestingly, but of course Hamas can't be in Damascus anymore, so he's sort of wandering at the moment. But he went to Beirut to meet with Hassan Nasrallah, the Secretary General of Hezbollah. So there's another actor. You have this axis of jihad. It is led by Iran, and it includes their terror proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah. I suppose you could add to that also Palestinian Islamic Jihad and the Palestinian resistance committees in Gaza. That's who's behind this. But then you've also got a broader network worldwide of supporters of Islamic Jihad and Sharia that include not just Shiites, not just Sunnis, but all of the above, and Westerners who are not even Muslim at all. George Galloway being an example from Britain. So the organization, though, is by Iran. The tactic is a march against the borders. The purpose is to try to assault the Jewish state of Israel. As with all of the failed attempts and programs and campaigns that preceded this one will fail too.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Claire, for the brief but comprehensive analysis. Folks, if you want to hear experts like Claire, I don't think we were able to Skype her in, right? Were we able to Skype her in?
No.
Did the people see her now speaking?
Well, I'll talk about it.
No, well, we will in the future. If you want for us to get into this material in great detail, one of the directors, there's 20 directors in this room right now, show me a sign, donate. We need you to donate. We need you to donate money to the United West. It's a 501c3. There's a link in the, oh, here it is, look at this. Pretty fancy. You can click on that, go right to the donate page, write a very big check, and we can bring you all kinds of programming like this. But seriously, we've done a lot of work with Claire Lopez. She's a fellow at the Center for Security Policy in Washington. She's a fellow with you guys, Clarion. She's a world traveler with us. We take her all over the place, and she's fabulous. She's brilliant. She has had a couple of careers. One 20 years with the that group in Langley, the CIA. She's a retired CIA officer, and now trying to alert people to the jihad. And we will have her back for more shows. But on the funding thing, let's go to, is Jerry ready? Jerry Gordon?
No.
No, he's not ready yet. We're going to have Jerry Gordon. Jerry Gordon is ready. He's right here. Jerry is senior editor for the New English Review, writes extensively. Jerry is one of the guys, Joe and Matt, that I could say, Jerry, can you give me a detailed analysis of Hassan al-Banna's kindergarten year and whether or not he really learned Arabic? And 5 minutes later, Jerry has 40 pages, you know, all beautiful. So he is a warrior. He's a Vietnam vet, intelligence officer in the Army back then, and a dear, dear friend of ours. Jerry, how you doing? And tell us a little bit about who's paying for these clowns to be invading Israel on Friday.
Well, basically, I think you were talking about either a 3- or 4-legged stool, with one of them being thicker than the others. It is clear to a number of us that it is Iran who has been the backer of this particular event, both directly and indirectly. Directly, it has sponsored a number of conferences, beginning as far back as October, to engage, quote, cyber warriors in trying to create a buzz for this particular event. But it has also, as a number of people realize, been a principal funder of activities to 2 proxies adjacent to Israel, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and also to our friends Hamas, not only in Gaza, but elsewhere. And in fact, 2 Hamas leaders have been prominent in conferences that have been arranged in London and in other locations. And curiously enough, as we have found out through our investigations, the websites for the global march to Jerusalem are in locations, either in Britain or elsewhere, that are basically sponsored by stalking horses for the Islamic regime in that regard. The other curious participant is a bitter enemy of Iran, but not in this instance, and that's Qatar. Qatar, as many people know, was the locus, the venue, if you will, for the international conference on Jerusalem that occurred last month in Doha, and brought together a whole number of folks who basically included two Israeli Arab list MKs. These are the enemies of Israel within Israel, and many of them have attachments to a fellow who was on board the infamous flotilla vessel, the Mavi Mamar, in the 2010 Free Gaza flotilla episode, who started the violence on board the vessels that led to 9 deaths there. Beyond that, you've got a lot of dough that have been secreted to Hamas from a variety of sources abroad, including the Muslim Brotherhood. And this may not come as a surprise to many of the folks on this call. Iran has also been modestly successful of insinuating funds directly into the West Bank. The Israelis know that. The Israelis have, in fact, attempted to do something about that as well. So you've got essentially the footprints and fingerprints of the Islamic regime sort of all over the stuff, but with a supporting cast of people across the Muslim Ummah, such as the Qataris, who basically have facilitated some of this stuff. That's essentially what has been going on in terms of the background funding. Now, curiously enough, those famous left-wing progressive groups in the United States, whether it's the Islamic Solidarity Movement, we have a website called Cal Solidarity, in Lebanon, in Beirut, in January, there was a meeting between Hamas representatives and a guy by the name of Paul Lardy. Lardy was the founder of the Free Gaza movement, and not unlike Noam Chomsky at MIT, who's now emeritus there, this guy has a PhD in linguistics from Georgetown. But putting that aside, this is a guy who basically is unafraid to deal with some of the worst terrorist groups in the world while professing nonviolence. He's also, get this, slept in the bed of a suicide terrorist who thought it was the highlight of his life in that regard. So this gives you an indication of who these characters are and where many of the buckets had come from to sort of fund this activity coming up on Friday.
All right. Thank you for that, again, deep but quick overview. I know you're pressed for time. You're doing a few things. Thanks for carving a little bit of time out of your day. Joe, quick response to that, and then are we ready for Ryan to come on, guys? Okay.
Well, you know, Jerry was just talking about the fact that, of course, they claim that this is nonviolent, but they make use of imagery, they make use of terminology that clearly does call for violence, terms like intifada. There is no alternative meaning to intifada other than a call for violence. The first intifada, the second intifada, these were events that involved the killing, okay, the maiming of thousands of innocent women, children, civilians. So it's very cynical for them to come out and suggest, well, there's a peaceful meaning to this. We're going to redefine this term. The same way some folks will try and argue that, you know, jihad means an inner personal struggle. I think we had a good example of this. I don't know if Mark has that loaded, but I know that there was a radio piece that was captured that I think exemplifies this pretty well. The first one or second one? The second one. The clip is of, it was an audio clip that we pulled off the radio. It's an interview with a leading anti-Israel activist down south in Miami, who of course styles himself.
What's his name?
This is Mohammed Malik, I believe.
Mohammed Malik.
So he styles himself, of course, as a peace activist. Last May 15th, okay, which was really the dry run for this global march.
Yes, indeed.
Just to give a little background, this has already happened before May 15th. They held a rally in downtown Miami called the Third Intifada Rally. Other rallies were held around the country. They called for Nakba Day, for a descent upon Israel's borders. We saw that actually happen. It's not a coincidence that as these folks were standing on Biscayne Boulevard, Israel was being attacked by hostile mobs on its borders. So he was specifically questioned about the use of the term Intifada, whether it was appropriate for them to call this rally the Third Intifada Rally. And of course, you'll hear him trying to walk through the
weasel his way out. When in fact, how many intifadas? What is an intifada, Matt? You live there.
It's a war. It's a war of terrorism. It's a war of terrorism directed against civilians in the heart of Israel. A personal example of what it means to live during an intifada as the target of that is a friend of mine who, she's a religious woman and she prefers to dress modestly. So when she would walk to the market on Friday mornings to purchase her groceries for Shabbat, she would make sure that she would wear underneath her clothes sports bras so that if she were to be injured in an attack and they would have to cut off her clothes to treat her in the street, she wouldn't be lying there naked. That's what it is to live during an intifada.
All right, let's see this. Let's listen to this radio piece. Mohammed Malik defending the use of the term intifada.
And the U.S. media needs to understand that if we're going to use the word intifada, we as a youth are going to take back that term and use it the way we want to. Intifada does mean revolution. It means fighting back. And fighting back the way Gandhi said, militantly non-violent. Militantly non-violent. And I say militantly because we're not going to put up with this anymore. But we're not going to use weapons.
You can understand, though, that intifada would conjure up.
Well, they need to have a new understanding of intifada. Today is a day for a new understanding of intifada. Today.
It's hard to get people to unthink the meaning of a word and then relearn it.
Understanding a new understanding of the word intifada.
So of course we heard the use of the term militantly non-violent. I think
militantly non-violent.
Yeah, that's like being the world's most peaceful terrorist.
Yeah, exactly. You know, this stuff. When you folks look, when you spend your life doing this like we do, you have to find a little bit of humor in the absurdity of all of this. But militantly non-violent. And these are dangerous people. Right now, though, we're going to go to Ryan. Do we have Ryan Morrow ready? Ryan is the whiz kid, the counter-jihad whiz kid. Ryan started fighting jihad when he was about 2 years old, I believe. And, you know, as a little kid, he's got his tools in fighting the battle and writing. But he actually, as a young guy in his teens, was studying the world geopolitical global threats, started worldthreats.com, a website that he started. And you ladies out there, he's single, he's on Fox all the time, Fox News and other stations. And right now he is working with you guys at Clarion. You have two hats. You have two keepers. Jerusalem Online and Clarion. And on the Clarion side of the house, Ryan is a fellow now at Clarion, does a lot of work with the United West, and we brought him on to get his perspective of this global march on Jerusalem, some of the folks endorsing it. But Ryan, let me share this with you, and you could respond. And I believe, ladies, he's going to be on the screen. You should have been here just before we started the show. He doesn't, I don't know if he has a suit on or what, you know, what the deal is, but he was just hanging around at his house and looked real casual, and we'll have to put his phone number up for you. Ryan, we have heard that a call went out to guys your age, Ryan's in his early 20s, and younger, to be the provocative tip of the jihad spear on Friday, to be the frontline people rushing the IDF and the border police to break through their barricades so everyone else can follow. And there's been a call for martyrdom, basically, and men are responding. What are your thoughts on that? Does that sound crazy? Is it consistent with the threat doctrine? What are your thoughts on that? Tell us who's endorsing this whole project, too, by the way.
Well, it's not crazy when you consider the thought process and the ideology of the people that are organizing this march and what they're trying to accomplish, which is the destruction of Israel. That is their long-term objective. And as your other guests mentioned, this is being organized by Hamas. by the Muslim Brotherhood and Iran. When I went to the website to look at the organizations that were supporting this march and helping put it on, I noticed that there are 23 of them in Iran alone. So that shows and proves that the Iranian regime is really spearheading this. And I also noticed that there's a lot of activists involved in this from the country of Jordan. And so I think in a broader context, I'm concerned that the Muslim Brotherhood might be using this as a way to pressure the Jordanian government, if not spark an Arab Spring inside of Jordan in order to have the king overthrown there, because the people are going to arrive on the Jordanian-Israeli border and they're going to demand to be allowed through, and at that point Jordan has to choose either to do the right thing and stop them or to cave to the Muslim Brotherhood. So this puts a lot of pressure on Jordan. And one other thing I'd mention is I looked at the websites of some of these organizations involved, and one of them is called the International Union of the Unified Ummah. That is based in Iran, and it explains their objectives. Two of their objectives are as follows: reviving and spreading the Islamic Revolution's discourse throughout the world, especially in Muslim nations. And one of the other objectives I'd point out is supporting global cells of revolutionary resistance and offering help to set up such cells. Global. So this is much bigger than the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This is a part of the global Islamist offensive that Iran, the Muslim Brotherhood, and all their allies are leading, and this is just one battle in that overall war.
Okay, well, you guys have any questions for him? I got a couple.
Well, I think he was just alluding to the use of IP addresses, and they're making use of that technology to understand where this support is coming from, and a lot of those trace back to Iran. So I think it really does reinforce the fact that this certainly is not limited to an Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This has to do with the fact that Israel is really the Jew amongst nations.
And if you've heard Netanyahu's speech to the Knesset on March 12th, 3 weeks ago, he lays out very distinctly the historical precedent for Israel responding unilaterally, even when their friends say don't do it, like the United States, like Britain. And he lays the precedent out, which is a red flag for the possibility of an attack against Iran. But then he lays out empirical evidence that Iran is involved in Gaza. And he said the rockets come from Gaza, the money comes from Gaza. He goes on about 10 different metrics. And then he basically says Gaza is Iran. And he concludes, would you agree with this, Ryan? Netanyahu concludes, and you better agree with Netanyahu, but you don't have to. Netanyahu concludes that Israel has an obligation to uproot Iran from Gaza. What does that mean to you?
I don't think that we're going to see an Israeli offensive suddenly into the Gaza Strip, but if you see what happens on March 30th and then the days after expand into a real bloody confrontation, and you see Hamas start firing rockets towards Israel, then Bibi Netanyahu is going to treat this as it is, which is an Iranian war on Israel, Gaza Strip being one of their bases, and he is going to really hammer Hamas, and that will pave the way for a potential Israeli strike on Iran. That's one of the things that the Israelis have to do. They have to minimize the capabilities of Hamas and Hezbollah in Lebanon before striking Iran's nuclear facilities.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to thank you very much, Ryan. We'd love to keep you on longer. We got other people we got to get to, but we're going to do extended shows with you. It is critical. I think we need to do a show, Joe and Matt and now Peter, on the various scenarios that Israel must follow or ought to follow or will follow to defeat the Iranian nuclear threat. And you can't be fighting on four fronts. Matt, having lived there, what would a prolonged or an aggressive attack on the Hamas in Gaza, what would that mean for the everyday Israeli living not just down south but all over the country?
Well, Israel's a conscript army, which means that if there is a significant military mobilization, industry comes to a halt because entrepreneurs, small business owners, bus drivers for that matter, are called to active duty. So the immediate effect on the economy is obvious. The effect on the security situation, Hamas now has artillery capable of reaching further into Israel than previously, and it can cause the evacuation of literally upwards of 2 to 3 million Israelis from their homes. They will have to flee their homes for safety further inland. And that's presuming that Hamas does not get support from its friends to the north in Lebanon, which would cause the evacuation of pretty much all of Israel.
We definitely have to do a show. One quick statement, because I got a lot to say on this thing. Yeah.
We just saw the perfect demonstration of this 2.5, 3 weeks ago, when more than 1 million Israeli families, children, couldn't go to school. They basically had to stay underground in bunkers while Hamas fired off more than 300 rockets. So we saw a perfect demonstration of this.
You saw that we in America saw the demonstration. We, the United West team, hosted by Mark Kohlberg. Could we get him up on Skype? Because we're going to bring him in for our concluding thoughts here. He took us, Joe, to Gaza, right across from where Gush Katif was. We were in Sderot. And I didn't realize the homes were still that close. You could have an old BB gun and still hit somebody and hurt them. So I kept dancing and moving along. But I believe the day after we left, the rockets started coming overhead. And Mark Kohlberg, are we getting him up by any chance?
We've got 2, yeah.
Okay. Mark Kohlberg took us to the bus shelters. We wait out of, in bad weather for the bus, but they're bomb shelters now. And the construction that's being built on each home as the bomb room, their safe room. This is the way they're living in Sderot. So crazy stuff. Now,
Michael. 1 second.
The Global March on Jerusalem. Peter Feynman. Peter's joining us. How you doing?
Good afternoon, Tom.
Good to see you.
Good to be here.
Peter is a good friend. That's probably the best way to introduce him. Good friend to me personally. Good friend to the United West from day one. Good friend to the counter-jihad movement. He's written several books. We'll get into that. Good Christian guy. This is interesting. We have 2 Jewish guys here and 2 Christian guys.
Well,
we could all get along, can't we?
You can't be a committed Christian without standing on the shoulders of Jewish giants.
Amen, amen. Peter's also an accomplished attorney and keeps me and everybody else out of jail and out of trouble. So that works. That works pretty well.
So far, so good. I'd say the jury's still out.
So far. Yeah. Not too many trade secrets here, okay? But let's start with your book. Let's push this thing. What's this all about? The Next Nightmare.
The Next Nightmare, How Political Correctness Will Destroy America. And indeed, it will contribute to the destruction of Israel, if that were possible. Because our political correctness keeps us from making moral or value judgments. And when we don't make moral or value judgments against obvious enemies, like what you've been talking about this afternoon, then it leads to the destruction of, or at least leads to attacks on and of Israel and eventually the United States, both from within and from without.
All right, in light of the Global March on Jerusalem, which is 2 days from today, and some folks are saying it's going to be a dud, there's going to be 3 people there, and they're just going to run into each other. Others are saying no. I mean, the Israelis are taking this very seriously. They're digging ditches in certain areas to make it more difficult for the people to come to the barricades. Water cannons are being put in place. Triage units are being established. They're taking it seriously. And we hope and pray that it's a dud and it fizzles out. But if it doesn't, what is the non-politically correct thing that this administration ought to do today in regard to this event on Friday?
That's a great question, Tom. And the non-politically correct response would be to condemn this without question. This, in my judgment, is a precursor to far worse and greater things, incursions into Israel. I think this is a little test step to see how the world is going to react and to see, I think most importantly, how the United States is going to react. As the sole superpower in the world, we're the gorilla in the room. And so they're testing to see if the great gorilla of freedom, the United States, they're going to see how the United States is going to react. And if we don't react, or react in the wrong way, this will embolden even further the forces of evil that are represented by Hamas and Hezbollah, and we will get more and greater attacks and incursions like this until finally it'll be a conflagration that, as our friend Matt described, it'll be a full-out conscripted war. And you know what? People need to recognize what they want over there. And when I say they, you're talking about Iran and the other radical Islamist countries over there. They want the next Holocaust. Let's call it what it is. Let's not be politically correct. Okay? We've already seen a Holocaust within the last 100 years. They want another one. And until we recognize that, the destruction of Israel is a modern-day Holocaust. And, you know, it's great to say never again, and yet it's happening before our very eyes. And so those of us who care, those of us who do not want to see history repeated, we need to stand, we need to speak, we need to do broadcasts like this, we need to bang the drum, shout from the housetops, let people know that this is just the beginning, unless we speak strongly. And we need to reach out to the Obama administration to say, you need to condemn this strongly. This is wrong. Okay? Israel is not the bad actor in this play. The bad actors are the people who want to make a demonstration or a show of force. And if we don't, you know what you do with a bully? And I think Hamas and Hezbollah is a bully. Okay? You punch him right in the nose and keeps him under control. The problem is, as I outline in my book too, the United States is militarily strong, but ideologically weak. Okay, the terrorists are militarily
That's a good point.
weak.
Well, let me pursue. Yeah, go ahead.
Terrorists are militarily weak, comparatively speaking, but ideologically very strong. And you know, I'd rather have 5 soldiers with hearts of lions than 5,000 soldiers with hearts of sheep. And that's what Hezbollah and Hamas are counting on. And right now they see the leadership in the United States as a paper tiger. Not even a paper tiger. I think they see it as a paper sheep, if I may be so bold, given the capitulation and appeasement that we've seen over the last 3 years of the Obama administration. I wouldn't, if I were living in Israel right now, I would be very fearful given the leadership we have in the United States. If America can't stand for Israel, who can?
Yeah. On that note, let's go to Israel. I believe Mark Kohlberg is ready. 16-year retired national policeman and the head of counterterrorism there. He was a spokesperson for Israel. And he just spent 10 days in the U.S. up in Boston with Rabbi John Hausman, down here with us, speaking all over the place. Mark is with us right now. Mark, good to have you here. You just heard a dear friend of the United West, Peter Feynman, talking about not being politically correct. We know you're not, but what we'd like to know from you right now is, what is the sense in Israel? I know everybody in Tel Aviv has this saying, whatever happens, happens. But for real, from a national security perspective, from a border police perspective, from an IDF perspective, from a police perspective, is this being taken seriously, or is this no big deal, this global march on Jerusalem?
I think, Tom, in Israel, everything's taken seriously. The hype here in Israel is not as it is probably abroad, simply because we are so used to this. There's really no difference between a 5-man march and a 1,000,000-man march for us. You know, our troops are on the posts and they're ready and they're waiting. Should anybody try to do something stupid, we have to defend ourselves if this does come to place. But there is no hype at the moment in Israel. There's no, you know, there's nothing out of the ordinary happening here.
Freeze up?
No, it's fine.
Are you still there, Mark?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Nothing out of the ordinary. Now I'm reading. Yeah, you have to speak up a little bit here. I'm reading Israeli documents, the Jerusalem Post, various blogs on Israel, where there seems to be quite a bit of concern by folks. Where are you going to be Friday?
I think before we go there, Tom, our Minister of Defense, Ehud Barak, has told our forces, to be ready for the worst case scenario. Don't misunderstand me. We are ready. We've been warned to be ready. We see the media, we see everything. But you have to realize that the 30th of March is the Arab Land Day. And we've seen terror attacks. I was 100 meters from a suicide bomb on the 30th of March 2003. That was Land Day. So, things here, it's all this hype that's coming is not really affecting the Israeli public. If you take the first 20 people you see here in Israel that are civilians and not coming out of the military or police, they're even not going to know about what's happening. But certainly the people who need to know.
Okay, what you sent me a note earlier today that there was another attack on the Mount of Olives.
Yes, today another man was stoned. When we use the word stoned, we talk about rocks and bricks and so forth and so on. And exactly almost in the same place that took place when you were here in Israel. So this goes on. This is becoming the norm, unfortunately. This is like the 10,000 missiles that we've had fired at us since 2005. This is something that's becoming a daily occurrence. You've had 2 congressmen that were witness to this. They were there at the Mount of Olives at the graves, and they were attacked. So this is something that's going on, and it's like slowly becoming the norm, which is unfortunate, and nothing's being done about it. Again, we're in a defensive mode. We are still being patient. We are still being resilient. The question is just for how long.
We have a few minutes left. I'm going to go around and ask our experts here, then conclude with you, Mark. Wherever we go, all of us that works on these issues, everybody always says, who maybe is not up to speed as we are, well, Tom or Peter or Matt or Joe, what is the solution to the Arab-Israeli problem? I mean, when is this thing going to end? Okay, Joe, short answer, a couple of sentences for the audience. You're a very accomplished attorney and an expert on these issues. When is this thing going to end?
Step number 1, we have to recognize that land has absolutely nothing to do with the issue here. It has nothing to do with land. I would suggest for folks who want to find out more, who want to understand a lot of the operative facts, go to a website. It's mythsandfacts.org. Very simple site. It's going to give you plenty of background if you're a person who cares about going out, educating others, articulating these issues, and becoming engaged. Visit mythsandfacts.org. It'll give you plenty of background. I've just given you the conclusion from the outset. Land really has nothing to do with this issue. And from there you begin to really explore and understand that it's a variety of other things, lots of things that we've touched on today. Land is just not, land is not the issue at hand.
Okay, so it's not an issue over land. If you gave all of Israel to the Arabs, they're going to want, what's that, Manhattan.
Yeah. So it's existence. That's the bottom line. Existence is the issue. It's the fact that Israel exists.
I have another topic for a fascinating show, that if Israel is removed, if that bulwark of Western stability is removed, what dominoes start to fall as all the savaging countries want to go to Saudi Arabia and take the oil? What the world's going to look like with $30 a gallon oil if Israel isn't in existence. Peter, how do we solve the Israeli-Arab problem?
I think very simply, if you are a nation or an organization that subscribes to the belief that Israel has no right to exist, then we will not talk to you, we will not discuss peace with you. As long as you refuse to acknowledge Israel's right to exist as a country right there, then you do not have a table, you do not have a seat at the table. Because if you can't get past that fundamental concept, the fundamental acceptance of Israel and the sovereign right of Israel to be there, as it has been for 5,000 years, then you have no right to have a seat at the peace table. And that has to be, I think, the bottom line premise upon which all negotiations must be based upon.
What's up, Claire? The first step that has to take place is the cessation of indoctrination of hate in the Arab culture towards Israel and Jews. And no matter what would take place, even if an Arab Gandhi were to arise and lead a nation, as long as you have generations of young Arabs raised on Palestinian television to believe that Jews are the modern day Satan, no geopolitical solution can possibly provide interpersonal peace when there's indoctrination of hatred that deep.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Claire calls, she says she wants to add something very important to this conversation. So
Claire wants to add something, and we will take Claire anytime she calls in. Go ahead, Claire. Go ahead, Claire.
Thanks. I'll be real quick here. What I just wanted to do in a way of summing up, you're talking about putting things into perspective. Can you hear me?
yes.
Yeah? Okay. What we're looking at is Islamic Jihad. Islamic Jihad says that any land ever occupied or conquered by the forces of Islam must remain or be reconquered for Islam. That is part of what is going on. The other part of this that we have to understand is in the context of Islamic Jihad, Jew hatred is intrinsic to Islam, doctrinally and according to law, and of course history. And then the final point I would make is that Iran is making a move here for the leadership of the international Islamic Jihad movement. I don't know if it's going to succeed, and we'll have to watch and see how many actual Muslim Brotherhood participants it attracts to this event on Friday. But the conflict within the Muslim world right now is between the forces of the Muslim Brotherhood alliance, Turkey, Muslim Brotherhood, Egypt, and the Iran axis, which is Hezbollah and Iran and Syria, of course, and maybe Hamas. So watch that dynamic playing out to see whether Iran succeeds, and I don't think it will, in seizing that leadership of the Islamic Jihad movement. More dangerous, I think, is the Sunni one and the
we had a little hard time hearing you. We got most of it for sure, Claire. Claire established the fact that there is authoritative doctrine in Islam that will never allow that land to be taken over by the Jewish people. Joe established the fact that land isn't even the issue. Peter had the excellent observation that when you have your guiding documents like the Hamas Charter that talks about the obliteration of Israel, how do you come to the table? And then Matt, who's lived there for 10 years, says they're teaching their kids to hate Jews from the bottom, classes. So how do you solve this problem? There needs to be a sea change in the Islamic world. But let's conclude with Mark Kohlberg. If he's still there, is he there? Yes. Mark, your concluding thoughts. How do we solve the Arab-Israeli problem?
How do we solve it? We have to get a time machine and go back in time. It's a very, very difficult problem to solve. Knowing you're saying the Arab problem. Let me start small. Let me start with the Palestinian problem, because that's everybody's blaming it on the Palestinian problem, which is really not the problem. So if I start with the Palestinian problem, it's probably going to take about 3 to 4 generations of really good negotiation and sort of doing or changing the total education system of how these kids are brought up, because that is the beginning of the incitement, and that is the beginning of our negotiations with them. And there are just certain things that, there's no compromise at all. We will not give Israel back to anybody because it belongs to us in the first place. So I think this is where the core. I just heard before I got cut off, Joe said it's not about land. Well, I like Joe, and Joe, how are you? But I really tend to disagree because it is all about land. They want Israel, that's their goal, but we are just the first stage in a bigger picture.
Okay, Mark, thank you. We know it's late in Israel. It's like 30 hours ahead or something like that. But we thank you for staying up late. We're going to do shows, ladies and gentlemen, future shows. Mark is our contact now, the United West special operator in Israel. And we have the capability of bringing his insight, his experience to you here. So we will bring that material. But what we're going to do right now is kind of sum this up. Again, we're talking about this global march on Jerusalem, which is 2 days from today. We're trying to alert and awaken Americans to a possible serious problem. And if it does occur, we hope it doesn't, we will be reporting on it. But we're going to close. Joe's put some thoughts together, you two guys.
Yes.
As to what the audience can do. And is Mark still there? Is he making noises?
He's making noises, so again. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Just one quick update for you as I'm talking to you. Our defense forces is public knowledge, open source, come out one of the Israeli media sources here in Hebrew. We are, this is just a report that's just come in here, that the Judea and Samaria areas, Lebanon, Syria, all our borders are protected. We don't expect any violence, but saying that, I'm just quoting, I'm just translating for you, but saying that we are ready and waiting for every single possible event.
Okay, that is good to know, and for the listening audience, that's open source, and the viewing audience. And we know the Israelis have many people working the other side of the fence in all of those countries. So we'll see what's going to happen. Joe, Matt, why don't you share some thoughts as to what the viewing audience can do?
Sure. So, we work with thousands of people who are curious what they can do, how they can play a part in all of this, and of course getting involved and trying to spread an awareness of this and getting people actively engaged is very important to us. So we took the time to make a brief list of things that people can do. First of all, folks should know that a Buy Israel Day has been coordinated for March 30th as well. The idea is, of course, that folks should go to a store, they should buy a product made in Israel, and at the time of the purchase, they should submit a brief note to the management of the store explaining that they support that business's decision to sell Israeli products and that they're going to continue coming to that particular retailer on that basis to buy more Israeli products. We like to think that that's a very productive way for people to get involved. Second, we want folks...
Wait. See, this is the beauty of it, working with Jewish people. The Arab Islamists, the Sharia-compliant Muslims, figuring out how to build bombs to blow people up. You're figuring out how to generate revenue and be productive and constructive. That's the divide in this worldview. It's amazing.
Well, look, it's a simple way for folks to frustrate their efforts.
Sure, it's perfect.
This idea of descending on Israel's borders is very well tied into BDS, boycotts, divestments, and sanction, which is another part of the puzzle that we didn't engage too much, but the bottom line is they're also conducting economic warfare against Israel, so we should be pushing back on that front as well. Second, we talk about educating ourselves. There's something called the 3D standard, which I would suggest folks learn more about. This is the threshold. It was articulated by Natan Sharansky, the famous Soviet dissident, who talked about delegitimization, demonization, and the application of double standards to Israel. This is the threshold that defines where we transition from legitimate criticism of Israel on a policy basis into the use of Israel as a whipping post, a way of delivering an anti-Jewish agenda. Bigotry, okay? Plain and simple. We need folks to understand the 3D standard, and we need them to be able to apply it to activities such as this, okay?
That's great.
Education. I talked about mythsandfacts.org. Check it out. It's free. It's a fantastic place where you can look at definitive, cited information. Everything is authoritative there. Okay? We also need folks to be active in their local community. Op-eds. People are going to begin writing articles about what is happening. Okay? Oftentimes we find that justified violence is a theme when presenting Israel in the media. These sorts of activities, they should not be written off. It should not be put in the context of justified violence. Israel has done nothing whatsoever to deserve these hostile mobs coming down on its borders. If you see shoddy journalism, by all means, bring it to the attention of others and begin submitting op-eds and demanding media, really responsibly report this.
We've got about 2 minutes.
Okay. Be cautious with your language. This was a point that was raised, I think, by Lori Lowenthal. Don't use terms like West Bank. Use terms like Judea and Samaria. Okay? The use of language is absolutely central to this issue, as she mentioned. It's ridiculous for somebody to suggest that Jews don't have a right to live in a place called Judea, which of course is the rightful name of this territory. It would be like us sitting here and suggesting that somehow Arabs don't have a right to live in Arabia. The land is called Judea, and people who want to argue that Jews don't belong there should be having to do it in the face of recognizing that the land is the home of the Jews. Okay? We also want to recognize the fact that we have choices to make in the next few months. We're fortunate here in South Florida. We have a great leader on these issues, Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen. She's been leading efforts to defund the Palestinian Authority. Hundreds of millions of dollars in U.S. taxpayer funding is going to support the Palestinians.
That's a whole other show. That is crazy stuff.
It is. We have other great politicians in the area who are working on this as well. It's a consensus issue between Republicans and Democrats. We had meetings in November with Congressman Ted Deutsch, who made a very public call in November for the GAO to begin investigating the use of American taxpayer funds by the Palestinian Authority to pay stipends to terrorists with blood on their hands. Okay? We need to be supporting Republicans and Democrats when they put themselves out there and start demanding that these sorts of issues be looked into and that our money not be used for such egregious purposes. Get to know the issues, understand them well, because your part in this is going to happen when you actually choose who to support and who to oppose in November. So by all means, educate yourself and make sure that you're using that privilege in a responsible manner.
And if you don't know who not to support in November, give me a call. Okay, I can help you out on that one. Any concluding thoughts, Matt?
I would say, if you don't have the solution, if you don't know what to do, just do something. Because the biggest problem we have is apathy. It's the masses of people who ideologically agree with the right things, but just aren't doing enough. Send an email, write an op-ed, take a course, send a donation to a great organization, but do something.
Let me second that. Hashem can direct a moving car better than a parked car. So it's critical. As Jews and Christians, we have a belief in a vital God. That's important. And I'd like to do a show on the biblical and theological basis for the land and argue that issue with people that want to argue that. So we'll do a lot of things here at the United West TV station, as long as Mark can keep our 25 cents equipment rolling along. But we can use your donations and bring great programming to you. So thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate the time.
Yes.
Mark Kohlberg, I know there's a couple of people we couldn't get to today, but we've got to wrap it up. We'll get to them on future shows. We have a woman, Tani Zarelli, in Israel, and she has tremendous insight. We'll do some stuff with her in the future. So thank you all. Signing off. This show, if I'm not mistaken, will be available for rebroadcast, or people can go watch it.
Right.
We'll send out an email telling you all about that. Thanks. Have a wonderful day. Keep your eye on Friday the 30th, and we've got to stand with Israel. It's that simple. Take care.
Thank you, Tom. Keep up the good work.
Adios. He's still in that box over there.
Mark, how you doing?